I worked as a professional tarot reader.
Go ahead.
So as I was saying, I worked for many years as a professional reader, and one of the things I got in the habit of doing, because I had rather a large collection of tarot decks, I would take 4 of them with me and place them on my table and have the client choose the deck that appealed to them. But I had given each deck a meaning, and whichever one the client chose, I incorporated into the message I was going to give them. Some of them suggested that monetary affairs were going to be very important in their near future, others that romantic situations or emotional situations would be. Another deck had to do with spiritual growth and spiritual situations, etc. And that, I think, was an important stage in getting to this point. Now, a few years after that, I had a catastrophic back injury, and I spent several years being bedridden effectively, and then several more years of slow recovery. And during that time, I ended up moving in with Edward and his family. And one of the things that we often did during that time were tarot readings. I had actually met Edward at a psychic fair. We were brought together by the great psychic Eleanor Royce, who basically engineered our meeting. And one of the things we had in common was tarot. So we did thousands of hours of tarot reading during that period. Edward is a devotee of what is called the Destiny's Design reading style. He's the creator of it, I should say. And it involves multiple decks. And as I was saying, I also had involved multiple decks in my readings. And so what we would do in these readings is we would use many different decks all at the same time. And that really, I think, is the nascence of the idea behind the infinite tarot, using so many expansions and variations. What this did for us, partly it expanded the number of potential readings, because although these were all traditional tarot decks that we were using at this time, they were also drastically different in some ways. And a card from one would have a very different visual look and a very different spiritual feel from the same card out of a different deck. And so in effect, it was expanding in much the same manner, where you had cards in one deck that were not in another, at least in how you could interpret them. Now, with the Infinite Tarot, there are literally different cards that with different meanings that expand your options. But this does a number of things for the reader. It, again, expands the options. You have many more things that you can read from to talk about what is coming in the question that you're reading for. You also, as I've said before, you can take out and put in. You don't have to expand the number of cards necessarily, but you put in cards that have meaning to you that may resonate with you more than what's in the core deck. In that way, you can have a very personal deck that reflects your interests and your personal focus. And some people will have interest more in one area than another. I was reading the other night with, I guess last night, our astrological expansion deck. And I have been doing astrology since I was very young. And so for me, astrology is second nature. Putting these into the deck allows me to use that astrological knowledge to further expand the reading that I am doing for a person. And the meanings that come with the astrological planets and signs are not necessarily present, certainly not in the same way in a traditional tarot, but I find they're very useful. And so not only does it make it a unique deck, but it makes it a deck tailor-made to one's personal strengths and preferences. And you can use what you resonate with. We also have this Rune expansion deck, and it has the 3 Aitier of the runes. And if you happen to be a specialist in runes, perhaps you have read runes in other contexts, perhaps you've merely studied them, But if it's something that you resonate with, this would make a deck much more in line with your personal interests, much more in line with your unique character. And we also have numerology, which I don't think I did show the other night, but the numerology deck is based on numbers. And for people who love numerology, that is something that they might find very helpful. I also have studied numerology since I was very young. I actually started learning numerology out of a book that was not much bigger than these cards. In fact, I think it was smaller than these cards that we got in the checkout lane of the local grocery store, because this was all very popular back in the 70s. And so to the extent that you would find it in the grocery store. And so numerology, again, is something that I can fall into very easy. And each of these numbers has a very particular meaning and can be used to expand the potential answers that the tarot will give me. And it's our intention to continue adding to the Infinite Tarot indefinitely with many different directions, many different doorways, for want of a better way to put it. And not every person would want all of them. Each person is intended really to choose the ones that have meaning for them, that expand their deck in the way they want to expand it. You know, I kind of think of it like that scene from The Nightmare Before Christmas, when Jack Skellington is in the little grotto with all the trees that open out in other directions to other holidays. I think of each of these decks as being kind of like one of those doorways. It's all still in the same, it's all in universe, so to say, but it goes to different places. It goes to places where different people may feel more or less comfortable, and they can choose the door they like, or they can use all of them. And if you use all of them, it is a great expansion of the meanings inherent in the tarot. And of course, the other thing that started us on the road to the Infinite Tarot was the Terror of Hecate. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about influences, but I think I did. We talked about how it was a 100-card deck, but what it did to get to be a 100-card deck is it includes an additional suit and several additional major arcana cards. And I think it was adding those that really opened the door to the idea that, yes, you can expand the tarot. And partly also on the basis that in doing that and in studying tarot, I came to learn that that really isn't a new idea at all. The original tarots worked pretty much like this. If you look at the oldest tarot decks, they're not the standard 78-card tarot deck. Many of them do include astrology or concepts such as the muses and or the virtues or other things that had meaning to the person who commissioned the deck. And each deck was basically individual. Yes, those 78 traditional cards usually were present, but it was not limited to that. That came later. And so in a way, I feel we're returning to tarot's roots by doing this. And in the days when all tarot decks were done by hand, they could be unique to the person who commissioned them. And the Infinite Tarot basically resumes that concept. You can make it what you want it to be. And we talked about the Create a card. And through that, you can have a card that no one else on earth necessarily has, that is unique to you. And you can have it only for your one deck in the universe. Or, if you prefer, it can be included in all of them. That is up to the person who chooses to create a card. So, if you'd like to learn more about the Infinite Tarot, you can find out more at tarotai.com. If you're interested in our Corellian ancestor cards, you can find out more about them at corellianpublishing.com. And I hope that you have enjoyed this broadcast, and we'll be back tomorrow night. And until next time, may you blessed be.